So I had a client just recently, and I'm going to share some attributes of our meeting because I want this community, the well-share community, to truly understand they are not alone. You guys are not alone when it comes to thoughts, limitations, feelings, not being able to see past what your reality is. That is actually pretty normal. A lot of people kind of are in a space of not being able to see beyond what they actually see because they cannot imagine it being changed because they don't feel worthy of. So, this lady, she's married and she has children and they have these aspirations in life and they're doing some parts but not everything they want to do. And it really boils down to the fact that they couldn't afford it. But in our conversation, um, they wanted to explore what would it look like to actually obtain their goals. So in speaking to her, she's sharing, the husband is the breadwinner, he's the one who provides, she doesn't work, and everything financially depends on him. So I'm not going to get into anything other than that's their financial status. Okay. So um, they are wanting to aspire to more together, but she's more the work person who drives the ideas, drives their goal setting, drives the execution of things getting done, which in most marriages, it can work that way, right? Or some marriages where the wife is in control of the goal setting and the husband provides financially. Or it could be reversed, but we're just using this example for those who um, resonate with her scenario. So automatically, she came into the call with reservations, limitations, feeling like she was already going to say no to all of the paths and ideas that was going to be presented to her. So, one, people tend to have a predetermined answer even when they get the solutions that they're seeking. Okay. So, off the bat, you have to recognize if someone comes into a conversation already thinking that they're going to say no, already believing that there's no solution that's going to help them, even though they made the step to have the conversation. The step in having a conversation doesn't mean that they're open. It in totality, it just means that they crack the door open. Okay. They're doing a little peekaboo, okay, a little taste sampler. But I commend her and her husband for the conversation of let's explore these options. Because that means there's a part of them, regardless of how small it is, that do believe that they can have more, even though it's a very small belief. Okay. You know how the saying, the size of a mustard seed? So, the limitations. So I spoke to them about, the world is available for us to have all these options, and we, in our minds, will allow fear to speak to us versus the opportunities. Okay, that's two. Many people tend to allow fear to drive their decisions, even though a part of them wants more. And I often tell people fear is an indication to bust through that door. Fear is an indication to keep going. Fear tells you you're on the right path because fear doesn't want you to get to the other side of the door. It wants to slow you down, delay you, and altogether for you not to reap the benefits. Okay. So when it comes to, financial freedom, that fear that pops up that tells you, I don't want to do this because XYZ will happen and it's going to, be a downfall. It's not. It's fear saying to you, I know you're going to succeed and I don't want you to, so I'm going to make you feel that you can't obtain it. Okay? That's three. Fear drives you to fear the future. Now, let's kind of dive into that. Most people are fearing things that have not even happened. Okay? They have all these thoughts and ideas in their head twirling around, causing them to not be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Okay? So, when you understand that fear is clouding your judgment, you will you can push through and be able to say, you know what, I'm not going to pay attention to fear because I know I'm worthy of having more. I know that I am able to obtain goals. I've obtained goals before. Why can't I obtain more goals? Okay. Fear tends to keep people stuck. That is four. So when I started, diving into the possibilities, she kind of got excited. She really started seeing, okay, it's possible. But then she said one key thing: where is the money going to come from? And that was fear speaking. That was fear saying, you can think all you want about what you want, but you don't have the money. So the solution that I provided to her is you need to plan and just let it be. See, people get caught up in, and I'm not saying this is something wrong, I'm just saying this is something that stops most people. Setting goals with deadlines. When someone does not meet that deadline, they feel altogether like a failure. They feel that they're not able to reach goals. My suggestion for her and for you is set the goal and let it be. Keep the belief that it's going to happen without putting limitations on the time. Because if you know, like I know, God's timing comes before our own. And there's times we may force things, but if it's out of alignment of God's timing, then we will set ourselves up for failure and we will say all these things are not possible. But it's not true. You just put a time set to that goal that was not possible because it was not time yet. Because in the process of you reaching that goal, there are things you need to become. There are things you need to remove, okay? There are thought processes that you need to be able to understand so you could be a good, amazing steward of what it is that you're asking for. So let's just say you wanted to buy a boat. Okay, that is your dream. Your dream is to, own a house on a lake and have a boat. Okay, and you really have been holding on to this for a certain time. But that time became limited because you said, by the end of the year, I want to have a boat, but you didn't do the work internally to obtain the boat. You said, I'm going to have the boat, but you did nothing to prepare to buy the boat mentally and financially. Okay. So when people are setting goals, they need to understand the internal work takes a little longer than they think. Because now, like the client who had these limitations coming into our meeting, these are limitations she's had for many years. So people feel, oh, I'm just going to change the way I think overnight. And it doesn't work like that. It takes some people, depending on the level they're at and depending on what they're trying to change, years. Okay? It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Years. And there's nothing wrong with it taking years. It just means that in the process of the years going by, you are becoming a better person to steward what it is that you want. Okay. So I wanted to be able to share that with you. Okay. So I believe we're up to five. Five, you have to do the internal mental work and sometimes physical work in order to obtain the knowledge, the wisdom, the understanding, and the clarity for the things that God wants you to know and do to get to the goal. Okay? God's not stopping you from the goal. God wants you to become a good steward so you can manage the money to get to the boat. You can manage the money to get to the house on the lake. You can manage and not blow it because when people receive things too early, they don't know how to manage it because they never had to manage something like that before. So it takes, steps. Sometimes baby steps, okay? Sometimes you don't have to look at it as this progress line, right? The goal is here, the end result is here. So in between, there are markers. There's things that you need to check off. So I wanted to share um, this meeting with you, with this client, because many people are in the same situation. Fear is driving them. They already have preconceived limitations. They don't see the money because they don't have the money in the moment, and they do not believe they're worthy. They feel like everybody else is, uppity because they have certain things. They're now classifying themselves a little lower than the people who have because they feel like, well, they have, I don't. So now all these negative thoughts is spiraling in their minds, now speaking negative about the people who have the things that they want. Okay, there you go. So I pray that this all kind of resonates in a way where you can say, I do have limitations. I do stop myself from obtaining the goals, and I'm putting too much of a short timeline on the things that I want. Now, I'm not saying not work towards the goals. I'm saying to you, remove the timelines, allow God to give you what you need along the way, but know that you will get there. So it's the knowing of that helps drive you to the goal, right? That openness to say, I'm worthy of having the boat and having the house on the lake. Why not me? So, share this with a friend. Start having the conversations in your community. Start to talk about, are we limiting ourselves on the things that we desire? And you will find more limitations that are set in your mind that have been there longer than you actually been paying attention to. And this is you becoming more conscious. This is you moving from a state of being stagnant, meaning like you just moving around life and life is just happening, to becoming more conscious with where you want to be and where you want to go. Okay. So I pray that all makes sense. And I pray that that helps you to know that you're not on an island by yourself. You're not the only one that has goals that, sometimes you feel like you're failing. Look at failure as an indication that tells you that it didn't work this way for a certain reason. So let me figure out what that reason is so I can keep going. Okay. So you all have a blessed day. I pray that God will give you the clarity, understanding, wisdom, and freedom to have the more that you want. Okay? Bye.